Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Trained by Shisui for the Chunin Exams Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. A 7-year-old Uzumaki Naruto was walking around the outskirts of Konoha. The blonde boy, who was wearing a white shirt with an orange spiral on it, along with a pair of dark blue shorts, as well as 3 strange whisker-like marks on his cheeks, had just pulled his greatest prank to date, releasing a bunch of harmless garter snakes into the girls' bathrooms at school. Of course Iruka-sensei had caught him and he was punished, but he didn't care. At least he was getting some acknowledgement, although he didn't like the idea of being known solely for his pranks. Out of the corner of his eye, Naruto saw a dark-clad figure lying on the ground in the warm weather and light breeze that made the leaves of the trees rustle in a kind of exasperated way. His mouth twisted into a grin at the fun he could have with the sleeping figure. Naruto crept silently towards the slumbering figure, pen in hand, ready to draw all over the unsuspecting victim. However, when he reached the side of the soon-to-be victim of his prank, he noticed that the man was staring at him with a blank look in his eyes. Naruto froze when he saw this and started to mumble an apology to the man. Sorry, I was just, sorry. No hard feelings, right? The boy asked the man, not making eye contact. When he heard no response, he looked at the man, expecting to see the cold fury that people always have on their faces after his jokes. Instead, the man was lying on the ground in exactly the same position he had been when Naruto first saw him. What is he, sleeping with his eyes open? Naruto thought, a sweat drop forming on the back of his head. Still searching for a prank to pull, Naruto settled for the kick someone in the ribs and run away gag. An oldie but a goodie. Naruto drew his leg back and delivered the hardest kick a 7-year-old could manage. He expected the man to get up and chase him, but instead he simply lay there. Once again walking over to the prone figure, Naruto looked at the man's face, only to notice that it was turning slightly blue. In a moment of clarity, Naruto realized that the figure wasn't sleeping. He was dead. Shocked at his newfound discovery, Naruto turned around to run away, only to find his path blocked by another figure, this one in an Anbu uniform. Naruto was frightened right then. He normally got blamed for things he didn't do, and this was something he didn't do. Hell, he didn't even know what happened, other than he found the guy dead. It isn't what it looks like. He exclaimed quickly, I just found him. I know exactly what it looks like. The Anbu said, walking over to the body. Naruto could see that the shinobi had dark black hair, much like the dead man had. Uchiha Shisui appears to have been suffocated or drowned. Killed by Uchiha Itachi. The masked ninja replied. That's awesome, how you can tell that just by looking at a dead body. Naruto exclaimed, glad that he wasn't being blamed for the death of the man. How do you do that? There was a pause for a moment, as the Anbu turned and looked at Naruto, his eyes turning from black to red, with 3 odd marks circling his pupils. Because I am Itachi, he stated calmly. Now that you have seen this, I cannot let you live. He said as he drew his sword. Naruto turned to run, but was stopped when the cold metal of an Anbu sword cut through his stomach. The sword was quickly removed, before it was once again slid through his body. Naruto let out a scream, only to find it muffled by the hand of the Anbu. As Naruto slid to the ground he was rolled over. Before he lost consciousness, he saw the ninja take out a kunai. Then everything went black. The next thing that Naruto knew, he was lying in a bed in a hospital. However, having never been hospitalized before, he didn't know where he was. He tried to open his eyes, but found that he was stopped by something covering them. Reaching up to touch his eyes, he felt the coarse but soft texture of gauze. Suddenly he was racked with a fit of pain as the adrenaline of his awakening wore off. He groaned and winced in pain, It wasn't until someone spoke up that he realized someone was in the room. Naruto-kun, it is good to see you are awake, said Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage. Oji-san, what happened? Naruto managed to groan out while he winced. It would seem that you were attacked by Uchiha Itachi and thrown in the river, left for dead. Sandaime said. You were found floating in the river along with the body of Uchiha Shisui, by an old student of mine, and she brought you both back. Hey, old man, what's with my eyes? Naruto interrupted the venerable Hokage. Although he couldn't see it, the Hokage cringed before he answered. I was about to explain that. It seems that for whatever reason, Itachi damaged your eyes beyond our healing abilities. This elicited a gasp of shock from Naruto. Does this mean I'm blind? He asked. Through gasps of breath. He began to cry at the prospect of never being able to see again. Actually, far from it. The old man said. My former student is a very good medic nin and she was able to transplant Shisui's eyes into you. It is very rare indeed, but it was vital to your survival that every place that blood could leak out from was plugged. That included your eyes. Ew, I have some dead guy's eyes in my head. Naruto yelled. Yes, Naruto-kun, I suppose you do. The old man chuckled. Naruto, those eyes are very special, they hold the bloodline limit of the Uchiha clan. What's a bloodline limit? Asked Naruto. It's a special ability that is passed down through someone's family. Explained the gray man. Now, since you are not an Uchiha, I do not think that the limit will awaken in your eyes, but that doesn't mean that they aren't valuable. If someone were to take them, Konoha would be in very big trouble. Naruto just lay in bed digesting all of the new information he had just learned. Old man, how long was I out for? Did anything important happen? He asked. To answer your first question, you were unconscious for about 2 weeks. Now, Naruto, the second thing is pretty bad. Itachi, the man that attacked you, he murdered his entire family except for his little brother, Sasuke. Sarutobi said in a sad voice. This means that there are only 4 people left in the world with the same kinds of eyes you have. Naruto just sat there in silence. He didn't know what to do. He was only 7 for crying out loud, and he just found out that he had some dead guy's eyes in his head, and the dead guy's family was dead, except for one kid. This day just couldn't get any weirder. Oh, how wrong he was. After checking up on Naruto, Sarutobi made his way back to his office. He had a meeting to conduct with someone, and it wasn't going to be good. As he entered his office, he saw his old student, Tsunade, waiting for him. She was holding a standard medical file, with all of the information they could gain from Naruto while he was unconscious. Everything seems to be fine, Sarutobi-sensei. The blonde woman said. There is one interesting thing. You said he was an orphan, right? The Sandaime just nodded. Well, I ran a DNA test with some extra blood samples we had, and well, you should look at them yourself. She handed the old man the folder. When he opened it, he stared at a complete genetic profile of the blonde. However, what grabbed his attention was the report that Tsunade had written up. Who else has seen this? He demanded. Only Shizune and I have seen the report. She stated, calmly. Sarutobi began to massage his temples as he felt a migraine coming on. Do you know how this could have happened? She asked. I have an idea, although I shudder to think of how she'll take this. Sarutobi said. He pressed a button on his intercom and waited for his secretary to respond. I need you to have Mitarashi Anko meet me as soon as possible. He ordered. The aforementioned Chunin was currently training out at Field 38. Mitarashi Anko was a kunoichi known for her short temper, more than slightly sadistic nature, lack of proper clothing and her prowess with kunai knives. She was a little annoyed that the Hokage was pulling her away from her training, but she needed a short break anyways. Her brown trench coat didn't move at all as she made her way up the winding stairs. When she entered his office, she was greeted by the sight of the old man, as well as Tsunade, the legendary medic Sanin. You wanted to see me, Hokage-sama? She asked, a look of slight confusion passing through her brown eyes. Yes, as you know, Uchiha Itachi attacked and killed his best friend as well as a small boy a couple weeks ago. Tsunade ran a blood test, to look for any possible relatives. Anko didn't like where this was going. There were only two reasons why he would call her in to discuss this kind of situation. Anko, the Sandaime said, breaking her train of thought. We have good reason to believe that it's him. Anko's eyes grew wide at those words, and she collapsed into a chair, grasping her breath and shaking her purple-tinted hair in such a manner, as if to knock loose a certain memory. Tsunade thought this was strange, even for Anko, who was known for her loud entrances and more than slightly sadistic nature. What do you mean him? She questioned. What in the hell is going on? Sarutobi sighed at the question of his student. During the Kyuubi attack, there were many S-class secrets made, one of which was Anko's pregnancy. He stated. What do you mean, pregnant? She's only 24, that would make her 17, at the time. I know that's rather young, but that's not exactly worthy of such secrecy. Tsunade said, angry that she was left out of the loop. You know who Anko's Chunin sensei was, don't you? Sarutobi asked, rubbing his head. You know what he did. Of course Tsunade knew this. Anko's Chunin sensei was Orochimaru, her former teammate turned missing nin. He was wanted for experimenting on humans, but she didn't see what that had to do with. Oh, my god. Tsunade gasped, looking at the slouched figure resting in a chair, her hands grabbing her stomach. Yes, due to one of Orochimaru's experiments, Anko hasn't aged in over 7 years. Sarutobi said, trying to comfort the sobbing women in his office. And due to another of his experiments, she found she was pregnant. We think it was part of an experiment to create a new bloodline limit. So, you're saying that my baby is alive? Anko asked, through ragged breaths. Why did you lie to me then? She demanded. Anko, I had no intention of lying to you about this. When I found your son, there was no evidence that he was related to you in any way, and due to the damage of the Kyuubi, we just assumed that your son was dead. I'm very sorry about this. I want to see him, right now. Anko demanded. There's no way that I'm leaving him now. Who knows what he's going through because of me? Of course, Anko, but before that, I have a few other things I want to discuss with you first. The Hokage instructed. All right, but can you at least tell me his name? She said. His name is Uzumaki Naruto. The third replied, watching her reaction. Anko's face was a mixture of emotions. Happy and sad were interchanged with anger and fury. She was grateful for the chance to be a part of her son's life, sad that he had been hospitalized in critical condition for the past 2 weeks, and angry at the villagers, who were too ignorant to see that the boy, her son, wasn't the demon that was sealed into him. Anko, in the DNA results, Tsunade found some very interesting information. It seems that Naruto has a large number of genetic markers, in common with the Yondaime. This elicited a loud gasp from Tsunade and a blank look from Anko. Are you saying that the father of my son is the Yondaime? She questioned. No, I'm not. You see, during his assault, Itachi damaged his eyes so badly, that they had to be removed. When Tsunade found him, she had to transplant the eyes of Uchiha Shisui to stem the large amount of blood loss he was experiencing. I don't see why that is important. Kakashi has a Sharingan implanted in his head too. Anko growled. Yes, but Kakashi hasn't suddenly developed Uchiha genes. The third replied. What do you mean Uchiha genes? Anko questioned. Hear me out. When your son was born, he had darker hair, right? The third questioned. Yes, dark hair and my eyes. Anko said. After the Kyuubi was sealed, the boy I found had blonde hair and blue eyes. Just like the Yondaime. In fact, he looks exactly like the Yondaime did at his age. Now, with the Uchiha genes, his hair is still blonde but with black streak in it, and his eyes are going to be black. His DNA shares markers identical to Shisui, as well as the Yondaime. What I think happened was that Orochimaru succeeded in creating a bloodline that would absorb anything foreign that the body was subjected to into the DNA. That way, any descendants of the child would bear the traits as well. Sandaime concluded. I think that before my successor died, he may have transferred, either by accident or intentionally, some of his DNA into Naruto, giving him his former appearance. Wait, what about the Kyuubi? Does that mean that he is part demon or something? Tsunade asked, shocked at her sensei's analytical analysis of Naruto's abilities. My son isn't a demon, Anko said, loudly, glaring at the Sannin. Calm down you two, the Sandaime said. If I am correct, Naruto must be subjected to someone's DNA to change. Since the Kyuubi is sealed inside of him, then there is no fear of him becoming a demon. Besides, we have a full DNA write-up. He's 100% human. But, what's to stop someone from putting their blood into him? He'll keep on changing, and that won't be good. Anko worried that her son may end up with some kind of disorder before she got to know him. Well, for one, since the Kyuubi is healing him, it is safe to assume that the demon has some ability to regulate what is absorbed and what isn't. If he didn't have the Kyuubi, then I shudder to think what would happen. Sarutobi said, I believe that the ability is either fading, or slowing down completely, because he adopted the genes of the fourth within a matter of minutes, but this time it took almost the entire 2 weeks he was unconscious for the changes to occur. Do you have those reports, Tsunade? Hi. His DNA had been slowly changing over the period of the past 2 weeks, and the changes were mostly minimal. I would need to run more tests, but I think that this ability is either being overridden in his own DNA, or it is being stopped as to prevent further damage to the boy. The medic Nin deduced. Now, said the third Hokage, what do you say about meeting your son? Tsunade, Anko and the Hokage made their way back to Naruto's hospital room. Anko was more than a bit nervous about meeting her son that she didn't know survived the Kyuubi attack, for the first time. She was surprised that the Hokage had allowed her to regain custody of Naruto, since she was a former apprentice of Orochimaru, plus her son was the Kyuubi vessel. She had no doubt that life would be rough for the two, at least for a while. As the trio entered the room, they found the blonde asleep in the overly large bed, making his already malnourished frame seem even smaller. Anko let out a sob, seeing her son in his present condition. She quickly rushed to his side and held his sleeping form in her arms. Seeing mother and son reunited in such a fashion made both the Hokage and Tsunade smile. Tsunade went to check on his charts, to see how he was progressing. After reading the clipboard attached to the end of the bed, her face fell into a frown, and she motioned for Sarutobi to follow her into the hallway. Sensei, no one has checked up on the boy, since I finished with him, except for me and Shizune. Isn't there one doctor here who doesn't see him as the demon? She asked, her anger showing. The Sandaime let out a sigh and frowned. I was unaware that the staff harbored such a grudge against Naruto. Of course this is his first time in the hospital, so I really had no previous knowledge of the staff's reaction. He said. Tsunade's scowl deepened as she heard two idiot nurses complaining about the demon brat. Tsunade, I have a request for you. Sarutobi said. I know that you have lost a lot of faith in this village, but I want you to come back. I would like you to be able to check on Naruto, since you are the only medic nin, not biased against him. If you don't want to take on the role of a ninja again, would you at least consider running the hospital? Tsunade stared at him with a glint of anger in her eyes. I'm sorry sensei, but that's not happening anytime soon. I'll stay until Naruto is well enough to leave with his mom, but after that I'm leaving again. She said. Suddenly a look of compassion washed over her young-looking face. But, I will stop by a couple times a year to check on him and to make sure that his bloodline isn't acting up. Sarutobi just nodded, and headed towards the room of Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke was lying in his bed, depressed after witnessing the brutal murder of his parents at the hands of his older brother, who had then used the Genjutsu Tsukiyomi, Moon Reader, which forced the 8-year-old to relive the murder of his entire clan for 3 days. Right now the black-haired, black-eyed boy was laying on his side, staring out the window. "How are you today, Sasuke-kun?" asked the old man. The boy simply looked over at him, but didn't say anything. He simply rolled back over and resumed moping. Sarutobi was greatly saddened by this turn of events. As the last remaining Uchiha that was loyal to Konoha, he was important to the survival of the Sharingan bloodline. Although, now that Naruto had incorporated it into his own DNA, there were now 2 people who could pass it on to their children. "Sasuke," the Hokage started, "there is someone I want you to meet." Naruto awoke to find himself in a dark, damp, creepy hallway, with pipes and a faint glow at the end of the hallway. Feeling an irresistible urge to follow, Naruto headed towards the light. When he arrived, he found himself facing a large gate, with a simple piece of paper stuck to the front of it that said, "Seal." Suddenly a large pair of blood-red eyes, with black slit pupils leered at the small boy. The first thing that ran through Naruto's mind was, "What the hell?" followed closely by an audible, "What the hell, I can see again." "Brat, that's because you aren't in the conscious world yet. You're in your mind." A deep voice echoed through the cavernous hallway. "Who are you?" asked Naruto, staring into the red eyes without blinking. "I am the great Kyuubi." The voice rang out. But you're dead, how can you be in my head?" "I must be dreaming," Naruto yelled and then muttered. "Okay, I'll cut back from 5 bowls of ramen before bed to 4. "I am most certainly not dead," the Kyuubi retorted. "I was sealed inside of you by the one you call Yondaime. I am doomed to stay trapped in here until you die, thus taking me with you to the afterlife." "Wait, you're sealed inside of me?" Naruto's voice was full of shock and surprise. If this was the great demon that attacked Konoha, then that would explain why people always said mean things to him. You're the reason that everyone hates me. Aren't you? You're the reason that no one will help me, and no one will let their kids play with me. You're the reason that I don't have any family." The boy screamed, tears beginning to flow from his eyes. Upon seeing the boy, who had stood up to more hardships in his short 7 years of life than most people did in a lifetime, begin to cry, the Kyuubi's eyes couldn't help but soften a bit. "Yeah, kid, I'm the reason that everyone hates you. I'm the reason that they keep their offspring away from you. But I think you'll find that you are mistaken. I had nothing to do with your lack of family." The deep bass voice of the legendary fox rang out. "What do you mean? I don't have a family. No one loves me enough to give me one," Naruto yelled. But suddenly, the cage began to dissolve around him, along with the background, and Naruto slowly felt himself wake up. Sarutobi and Sasuke entered a room to see a woman who had dark hair that almost looked purple, holding a boy with blonde hair and bandages over his eyes. Both were sleeping, the woman holding the blonde to her chin. "That is Uzumaki Naruto. The bandages are from where your brother attacked him and hacked at his eyes." At this, Sasuke looked shocked. He knew that his brother was deranged, but hacking out the eyes of a child was wrong, even for a homicidal maniac. "To save his life, a student of mine transplanted the eyes of one of your clansmen into Naruto. He'll have the Sharingan, and due to his bloodline limit, he will be able to pass it on to his children," the third explained. "Hokage-sama, why are you doing this?" Sasuke asked. The third smiled at the young Uchiha. "Naruto is, or rather, was an orphan. The woman you see with him is his biological mother. Since Naruto was born during the Kyuubi attack, records were messed up and they were separated. I thought that since the 2 of you share the same bloodline, that we should keep you 2 together, that is, if you would like to." The third explained. Do you mean, live with them? Sasuke asked, with a hint of joy in his voice. If you want to, then yes, Anko is a Chunin, so she has many difficult missions that may last a long time. If you were to join them, she wouldn't have to worry about Naruto while she was away. The third explained. I would like that a lot, if they would have me. Sasuke said, after only a few seconds of thought. The Sandaime just smiled and walked the boy back to his room. He would talk with Anko and Naruto about this later. If she refused, he could always make it a mission. Naruto could feel someone's arms around his shoulders in an embrace he was unfamiliar with. This wasn't some villager trying to kill him, there wasn't any pressure on his neck. This felt almost good. But no one loved him, maybe it was the Hokage. Naruto shifted a bit, letting out a quiet groan from his stiff back muscles. He felt the person who was holding him recoil and gasp. I knew it, another person who hates me. Naruto thought. Suddenly the arms appeared again, this time in a full-fledged hug. Naruto heard the mystery person, sobbing on his shoulder, as they hugged him. Naruto normally would have pushed this person away, but something about the hug caught him off guard. He was too stunned to ask a question, although he quickly recuperated and was about to ask one, when he heard the door open, followed by a number of footsteps, and the protective arms of the mystery person retracted. Making up for lost time, Anko. The voice of the Hokage asked. Huh, old man, who is this? Naruto asked, jabbing his thumb to his right, in what he hoped was the direction of the mysterious Anko. Naruto felt a hand encircle his as the mysterious person spoke. Naruto, I'm, Anko choked on her words, and couldn't finish them. Naruto, this is your mother, Mitarashi Anko. The Hokage said. What? I don't have a mom, you said so yourself. Naruto cried. I know, Naruto, but I was wrong. There are a few things I want to talk about, the first being your history. Said Sarutobi. Wait, is this about the Kyuubi? Naruto asked. This completely shocked the two occupants in the room. How do you know about the Kyuubi? Asked the Hokage. I was just talking with the great big fuzz ball. He told me about how the Yondaime sealed him inside of me, and how he was the reason the villagers hate me. Naruto replied. It is true that the Yondaime sealed the Kyuubi in you to save the village, but that's not the only thing I wanted to talk with you about. Said the Sandaime. Naruto, while you were unconscious, we ran some blood tests, to try and find your parents, and it turns out that Anko is your mother. We also found out that you have a very unique bloodline limit, it allows you to absorb people's DNA into your own. You see, when you were born, you had much darker hair and brown eyes, but somehow, some of the Yondaime's DNA got into you, which is why you look almost exactly like him. The Hokage said. Naruto just looked shocked, but since his eyes were still held shut, he couldn't stare in the correct direction. The Sandaime continued. Tsunade thinks that your bandages can come off in a day, so we will keep you here for the night. Now, I think that you should get to know your mother better. Without warning, Sarutobi left the two in the room alone, one just happy to know her child was alive, the other digesting the insane amount of information that was just leveled at him. While the two sat in awkward silence, Anko's hand snaked onto Naruto's head and began to stroke his hair. Oh, Okawa-san, gasped Naruto at the unfamiliar contact. Hi, Naruto-kun, I'm your Ka-san. Anko said, trying to hold back tears. I missed you, Okawa-san. Yawned Naruto, snuggling into the unfamiliar warmth of his mother and fell asleep. Anko didn't say anything, she just hugged her son tighter, her tears falling freely again. As the sun crept ever lower in the western sky, Anko moved Naruto into a more comfortable position in his bed and made her way into the hallway. She was hungry and headed towards the vending machine at the end of the hallway. She suddenly felt a presence spying on her from her right and looked over her shoulder at the offending person. She saw the Uchiha survivor looking at her from his room, saying goodbye to the Hokage. As she turned her attention back to her previous task, she felt the old Hokage come up behind her. Hokage-sama, I want to thank you for allowing me to get my son back. Most of the village would like nothing more than for him to be dead, but I can't, I won't let that happen now. Anko said, in an unusually demure voice. Think nothing of it, Anko. I wouldn't have it any other way. If anyone deserves a family, it is that boy above all others. Sarutobi said, actually, I have a question to ask of you. I know that motherhood will be a new experience for you, but I would like to keep the Sharingan bloodline together as much as possible. Naruto will hopefully brighten Sasuke's disposition, and Sasuke may be able to calm your son down a bit. You're asking me to adopt the Uchiha? Asked Anko. She was shocked that she was being asked to guard possibly the most important bloodline in the entire village. Yes, Sasuke has already expressed his wish to live with the two of you, should you wish to take him in. I'm afraid for him, you see, not only did Itachi murder his parents in front of his eyes, he's done caused the boy some serious mental trauma. I'm afraid of what would happen to him if he was left alone. All he seems to do is brood, but when I mentioned the possibility of a new family, his eyes picked up immediately. Sarutobi explained. I'm honored, Hokage-sama, but I'd have to talk with Naruto first. Anko said. Of course, said the Sandaime. Would you at least like to meet him? He asked. Anko removed her purchase from the machine and nodded her head. Well then, I'll bring him by tomorrow when Naruto gets his bandages off. Sarutobi said and left the hallway. Anko simply returned to her son's room to dream about life with a new family. The morning sun rose, and with it, Anko's eyelids. As she rubbed the sleep from her eyes, she looked at the sleeping form of her son. His blonde hair was streaked with lines of Uchiha black, and the new jeans had even given his normally unruly hair a bit of a lean, causing the hairs on the top of his head to lean towards his arms, although it was slight. The whisker marks which adorned his cheeks seemed to fade with the incorporation of his new jeans, but that might be a good thing. The less people recognized him, the better it would be. The sleeping boy was awoken around 9 o'clock by the entrance of the Sandaime Hokage, as well as the remaining Uchiha survivor. Once Tsunade gets here, we will be able to remove the bandages. The old man explained. While the group was waiting, Naruto had tried to start up a conversation with Sasuke. He knew the boy from the academy, but that was as far as his knowledge went. Though it wasn't known to Naruto, Sasuke was doing the same thing. He wanted to find out all he could about his new brother. What he knew from the academy was limited, and it failed to do the blonde justice. Sasuke knew that Naruto had a reputation as being the dumbest boy in the class, who liked to play jokes and was very loud. But after talking with him, he realized that Naruto, for all his apparent shortcomings, was actually quite smart. Thinking over his short experience with the boy, he realized that most of the questions Naruto received, and subsequently failed, were much too hard for most genin to answer. Actually, Sasuke didn't even know the answer to the questions the Dobi received. Sasuke came to the conclusion that Naruto's lack of skill was due to his lack of a family. He hadn't had anyone to teach him any techniques, or how to control his chakra. He had grown up alone, without the benefits or joys that family brings. The black-haired boy's next thought caught him off guard. If Naruto had never been trained, then how good would he be with supervision? While Naruto was the dead last at the academy, it wasn't by much. He might even be a worthy challenge for Sasuke, maybe even better than the Uchiha. The thought of this made the Uchiha smile. The boys' conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Tsunade and her apprentice, Shizune, who would be departing the hidden village immediately following Naruto's dismissal from the hospital. She muttered something about a hangover, and proceeded to unwrap the bandages surrounding Naruto's head. After the last bit of gauze was removed, Naruto slowly opened his eyes. At first the unusual sensation of bright light hitting eyes stung for a while, but slowly they grew accustomed. The crowd in the room was looking at the boy expectantly, waiting to hear his reaction. Sasuke immediately saw the Uchiha eyes and noted with happiness that the boy looked almost like an Uchiha, with his darkly streaked hair and deep black eyes. He was happy that even if the person staring back at him wasn't a true Uchiha, that he had at least found someone who was like him. Naruto was just happy to have his sight back. He blinked a few times before taking note of the people in the room. He recognized the Hokage and Sasuke. But there were 3 new people in his room that he had never seen before, including his mother. Naruto looked over his shoulder at the purple-haired Chunin and stared into her brown eyes. Although he looked nothing like her, he knew instinctively that she was his mother. Ka-san. The boy cried and quickly enveloped Anko in a fierce hug. How do the eyes feel? She asked, returning the hug. They feel fine. The boy replied. Can I see what they look like? Tsunade pointed her thumb over towards a small mirror over the sink in a corner. Naruto leapt out of bed and quickly made his way over to the sink to check out his new appearance. The black eyes of Uchiha Shisui gazed back at the former blonde. The look seemed, almost, natural. The only sign that the eyes were transplanted were small scars around the corners of his eyes, where the originals had been removed. The left eye had a cross running downward towards the bridge of his nose, and the right eye had 2 scars forming a cross at the far corner. All in all, Naruto liked his new look. The eyes weren't his usual happy blue, but he liked them nonetheless. His hair was now streaked and more limp than before, made him look a bit more mysterious, seeing as it actually hid some of his face. However, the thing he was most happy about was the fact that those ugly whisker marks had faded. Where there were once 3 lines, only 2 remained, making him look less like the fox that was trapped inside him. This is so cool, Naruto said, responding to his new look. I'm glad to hear that you like your new look, Naruto. The Sandaime said, I have a question for you. I want to know how you would feel having Sasuke as your brother. You mean, since he's an orphan too, you want him to live with Ka-san and me? The 7-year-old asked. The Sandaime chuckled to himself, seeing how intelligent Naruto could be. Yes, I would like for your mother and you to adopt Sasuke, so that all of you can have a family, even after such tragic events. That would be so cool. What do you think, Ka-san? The loudmouth asked, heading back to be closer to his mother. I don't mind as long as you don't. Anko responded, smiling at her sons, ruffling their hair. Now, I believe, there is the matter of getting used to your new eyes. The Hokage said, Naruto, you'll need help to use your eyes correctly, and there isn't any real point in separating you two, since it would be nice if you both activated the Sharingan. I'll have some specialized training set up for the 2 of you starting next week. Until then, I suggest you get to know each other better. The old man smiled and exited the door, leaving the 3-person family alone for the first time since its conception. 1 week later, the 2 boys found themselves waiting to meet their new sensei. He was currently running a good hour and a half late, and both boys were beginning to wonder if he'd ever show up. Yo, sorry I'm late. You see, there was this kitten, and it was caught in a tree, a voice said, approaching the 2 young ninjas in training. The 2 looked at the newcomer with identical stares of both disbelief and anger. He was a tall man with gray hair, although he wasn't old, and it stuck up in many different angles, not unlike Naruto's old hair. He was wearing dark pants and a dark shirt under the standard issue Chunin vest, as well as black fingerless gloves that had a metal plate on the back of the hand to block swords. The most peculiar aspect of the man was his Konoha head protector was pulled over his left eye, completely obscuring it, and he wore a mask that effectively covered his face and nose. You 2 are Sasuke and Naruto, I assume? The silver-haired man asked the bewildered boys. They just nodded their heads, looking at their sensei. He seemed, well, they didn't know how he seemed, there was something about him, he seemed dangerous, even if he was an hour and a half late. Why don't we introduce ourselves? You can tell us your likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams for the future, those kinds of things. I'll start off. My name is Hitaki Kakashi. I don't feel like telling you my likes, or dislikes, my dreams for the future. I have a lot of hobbies. He finished, giving absolutely no detail in his cryptic answer. Great. All we learned was his name. The boys thought to themselves. Well, my name is Uchiha Sasuke. I like my family and training. I have a few things that I don't like. My hobbies, I guess I don't really have any. As for my dreams, I want to start my own family, and I want to help my family accomplish their goals. The raven-haired boy said. He didn't mention Itachi. I guess that's a good thing. Kakashi thought. My name is Mitarashi Naruto. I like my family and ramen. I dislike the 3-minute wait for the ramen to cook. My hobbies are training with my brother and mom and trying all the different types of ramen that I can find. My dream is to become the Hokage and help my family with their dreams. He finished. Ramen-obsessed boy, but he's got a hard dream. Kakashi thought. He stared at the boys before him, Sasuke in his usual blue t-shirt and shorts with the red and white Uchiha fan on the back, and Naruto, who had taken to wearing black shorts with a bunch of pockets on them, with a white shirt. The interesting thing about the shirt was the clan symbol on the back. It seemed to be a mixture of the orange swirl he had donned under the name of Uzumaki Naruto and the Uchiha fan. It was an orange and red swirl, divided just as the Uchiha fan was. Well, my job for the time being is to help you two learn to harness the power of the Sharingan. Sasuke, since you haven't awoken yours yet, we'll be doing drills and exercises to help you. In Naruto, since you have fully developed Sharingan already, you just need to learn to use the correct amount of chakra to activate them. You'll be doing mostly chakra control exercises. Both of you will do drills with me until you get the hang of the Sharingan. Kakashi explained. After their first day of practice, Kakashi pulled Sasuke aside, since Naruto was being stubborn and still practicing his chakra control. Sasuke, I don't wish to bring up a potentially sore subject, but when I agreed to take on this assignment, I was given a psychological evaluation, and it said that, when you were admitted to the hospital, you were set on killing your brother, but today you didn't mention him. I hope you don't mind me asking, but what happened? Was the report wrong? Sasuke glared at his instructor before sighing. No, when I moved in with Naruto and Anko, I was pretty set on killing him. Flashback. Sasuke was unpacking his belongings into his new room, which he shared with Naruto. Anko's apartment wasn't that big, and they were looking for a larger place to live, but for now it was her apartment or nothing. Naruto was moving his stuff into the room as well, and Sasuke was shocked to find that everything of value that Naruto had could easily fit into a backpack. Naruto, Sasuke said, breaking the silence of the room. I understand that my brother attacked you, but Itachi is mine to kill. If you get in the way, then I may be forced to kill you. Don't get in my way. The brooding boy warned. Naruto looked at his new brother like he had some kind of marine animal stuck to his face. I don't care. You can kill him if you want. He shrugged. Now it was Sasuke's turn to be perplexed. How can you not want revenge for what he did to you? He asked. Oh, it's not that I don't want revenge, but it comes second. I don't know about you, but revenge isn't going to control what I do, so you don't have to worry about me getting in the way. Naruto explained. You obviously don't get it. I have to kill him. I am an Uchiha, and I must avenge my family. It's all my fault that they died. I couldn't do anything. At this, Sasuke began to break down a bit and tears came to his eyes. Sasuke, it's not your fault. You're in the academy, learning to be a ninja, and he's Anbu. There's nothing that you could have done. If you had been there to help them, you would have died too. Naruto said. Sasuke crossed the room in a second and pinned Naruto against the wall. You don't get it, do you? He hissed. I'm an Uchiha, I must avenge my clan. No, I do get it, you think that because you're from this clan, that you must avenge their deaths. You forget that your brother is also an Uchiha. This simply confused Sasuke even more. What the hell are you talking about? He asked the boy, trying to calm himself down. Look, you know how to cross-multiply numbers, right? Naruto asked him. Sasuke merely nodded his head, not understanding where this was going. So you know that when you cross-multiply like terms will cancel each other out. Think about it. You're an Uchiha in the academy, he's an Uchiha in Anbu. If you could cross-multiply the two, then you're stuck with an academy student against an Anbu. You never would have stood a chance. Naruto articulated. This struck Sasuke deep. He hadn't thought of his life in such a scientific way before. It made so much sense. Look, Sasuke, I'm not telling you to abandon your goal, but you shouldn't worry about it until you can match him. I'm sure one day, you'll see him again, and be able to kill him, but that won't be until you're at least a Chunin, more than likely, not until you're a Chunin. Don't worry about it for now and focus on other things. Naruto simply left the room to find his mom and give Sasuke some room to think. End flashback. Sasuke retold the story of Naruto's logic to Kakashi, who was very impressed by the dead last's ability to change Sasuke so easily. It's not a good thing to be an Avenger. Avengers lead a life of pain and suffering. They live for one reason, and if they ever accomplish their goal, they are left with a feeling of emptiness and despair. They become so caught up in their own world that they become social outcasts and loners. It is not a life that I wish upon anyone. With that, Kakashi dismissed the boys for the day. The boys walked back to their apartment at a quick pace, hoping to make it back in time to shower before dinner. The looks that they received were surprising to Sasuke, especially the first time he noticed them. He was used to people recognizing him, because he was from the Uchiha clan, but the looks people gave Anko and Naruto, they made him shiver every once in a while. At first it was simply at Anko, she brushed it off, scowling at the people foolish enough to make a remark behind her back. He wasn't able to hear what they were talking about, except for the word snake. After a while, the looks began to move towards Naruto. Even after the changes he went through, people recognized who he was. Sasuke was taken by surprise the sneers and glares he received. It surprised him just as much, when Naruto brushed them away by smiling at them. Flashback. It was the day after Sasuke's minor blow up at Naruto, and the boys were sitting around their new apartment, waiting for Anko to return from shopping. Hey, Naruto, why didn't you go with your mom? Sasuke asked. He himself hadn't gone because he was still digesting the conversation he had had yesterday. Well, I didn't want mom to have any more problems, he said, rather cryptically. What do you mean? How could you cause problems for her? The full-blooded Uchiha asked his brother. Naruto looked at his feet, swinging them in front of his body. You saw the way people look at me, right? He asked, keeping his eyes rooted on the floor. Yeah, they look at me like that, because I have the Kyuubi sealed inside of me, he said, quietly. Suddenly, his voice took a much more serious tone. Look, I don't care if you hate me, but if you use that to hurt Ka-san, then I'll kill you. Sasuke was shocked. The reason that Naruto had grown up without any kind of care was that he had a demon sealed inside of him. That didn't make any sense. But that would explain the looks the younger boy received, as well as Anko. As the mother of the Kyuubi vessel, she was probably seen as an anathema. Not to mention the hisses he heard yesterday, first calling his adopted mother a snake, and then openly hating his adopted brother. Naruto, I don't hate you. It's just a lot to take in. Sasuke stammered. The rest of the day was spent in silence, waiting for Anko to return with dinner. She seemed to notice the look on her son's face, as well as the look of heavy contemplation that graced Sasuke's face. When she asked what was wrong, Naruto denied that anything was amiss, and Sasuke simply shook his head. That night, when the boys were lying in their room, sleep had decided to fail them. "Hey, Naruto," Sasuke started to speak but paused for a second. "I don't hate you, for the Kyuubi. I think you're actually pretty brave, to put up with all the stuff you do." Naruto turned over to the boy and, although Sasuke couldn't see him, stared at the boy. Then Naruto returned to his previous position and tried to go back to sleep. Before he managed to find refuge though, he said, "Thanks, Sasuke. You're the first person I've told besides the Hokage and Ka-san, so this means a lot to me." The boys remained silent for the remainder of the night, before finally falling asleep. End flashback. After that day, the three people living under the roof of Anko's apartment could actually feel like a family. Sasuke and Naruto acting as each other's brother and Anko as a mother to Naruto and a surrogate mother to Sasuke. That night Sasuke had made a decision, that he would protect his new family. He didn't know that Naruto had done the same thing. The next few months passed quickly for the two boys. Between the academy and their training with Kakashi, they had little time for other activities. They would attend the academy until 3 in the afternoon, and then train with Kakashi until 5 or 6 and then return for dinner. Anko proved to be a very capable mother, caring for her two sons and keeping up with her duties as a Chunin. She would often be seen sparring with Naruto and Sasuke or simply chasing them if they were running late for any reason. As remarkable as Anko's transformation was, the most noticeable changes were in Naruto and Sasuke. Sasuke had, for the moment, given up on avenging his family and embraced his foster mother and brother. Without feeling the need to measure up to his murderous brother, he became almost social. He still abhorred the attention he received from his fangirls, but he would make attempts to meet the other people in his class. It had taken him a while, but almost 5 weeks of constant training in different combat scenarios with Kakashi and Naruto had awoken his Sharingan. It wasn't complete, but he wasn't expecting it to be, and was actually quite happy when he noticed that his right eye had 2 of the strange coma-like marks in them instead of 1. Naruto had changed the most. With the love of his mother, and the attention of his brother, he quickly gave up his prankster ways and devoted himself to both his schoolwork and training. It had taken him almost as long as Sasuke to reawaken the Sharingan, but he finally did, if only 1 day before his brother. He was leading a happy life now, and a large part of that was due, in part, to Sasuke. Before the majority of the village had harbored grudges or hatred against the boy, but now about half of the village was reconsidering their previous opinions. One half of the village was convinced that Naruto had conned the remaining Uchiha into being his brother, while the other half were convinced that Sasuke could do no wrong and thus accepted Naruto as part of society. After the training with Kakashi ended, the boys continued to train together and further their skills. Sasuke remained entrenched at the top of the class, but Naruto was quickly climbing the ladder and was closing in on the middle of the class. Naruto was constantly trying to find out if he had absorbed any more bloodline limits, so far unsuccessfully, and learning how to integrate the Sharingan and some of his new Kaden techniques into his fighting style. Naruto had never learned any type of rigid taijutsu style, and he liked that. It gave him an unpredictability that he found helpful. Sasuke had continued to train in the basic academy taijutsu, but he did thrown in some moves he learned from Anko and Naruto to give his arsenal more variety. He had also picked up Anko's love of kunai and other throwing weapons. He didn't have the experience that his adoptive mother did in close-range combat. His throwing accuracy wasn't bad and he consistently hit his mark with little or no effort. It was during one of Sasuke's throwing exercises that Naruto finally discovered another bloodline. Once again, Sasuke was trying to throw 10 kunai and have them deflect of each other to hit 10 separate targets. He had gotten to the point where he could hit 8 or 9, but the 10th continuously eluded him. Jumping into the air, he took a breath to calm himself down and focus on his task before he released the throwing knives. Sweeping his arms out, Sasuke released the metallic objects from between his fingers and began to right himself for his descent towards the ground. Clink. The knives bounced off of each other and Sasuke ventured a look at their trajectory. With 9 simultaneous thuds, 9 of the kunai embedded themselves into the intended targets. Damn, still only 9. Now where is that other one? He thought. He heard the yelp of his brother and figured that his kunai might have gone off course more than he had thought. What he saw confused the Uchiha to no end. Naruto was sitting in the shade of a large tree and there, not a foot in front of the younger boy's face, was the kunai. Floating in mid-air. Old man, Naruto yelled as he burst into the office of the Hokage. Something happened and we don't know what it was, but it was cool. We figured you would know so we came here. Upon hearing the "we" in the statement, Sasuke walked into the room. Why don't you tell me what happened and I'll see if I can help you boys? The venerable Hokage said, smiling at the close kinship the two shared. I was taking a break from climbing trees when one of Sasuke's kunai came flying at me. I panicked because I didn't have time to block it, so I put my arm out like this. He raised his right hand in a warding motion, while he used his left arm to cover his head, and when I didn't get hit, I looked and it was just floating in the air. This confused the Hokage. He had never heard of something like this. Is it a kind of chakra shield? He asked. No, we figure out that it could only repel metal objects. I tried throwing different things at Naruto, and the pebbles, dirt clods, and my sandal all got through, but he can stop kunai and shuriken in mid-air. Sasuke explained. That's why we came here. Either it has something to do with metal, magnets, or this field only stops deadly things. The Hokage thought about this for a minute. I have an idea how we can find out. He took out one of his many paper weights and laid it in front of Naruto. Try to change the shape of this, if you can, Naruto. He said. Naruto concentrated on the paper weight, which was shaped like a leaf, and willed it to become a simple block. Nothing happened. He tried for 5 minutes, concentrating on the leaf and willing it to change, but it never did. Well, I think we can say that your ability isn't to control metal. The Sandaime explained. I also think that your own tests show that it isn't some kind of force field, so I believe, Naruto, that you have a very rare bloodline that was originally from Tsunagaku. Their Sandaime had the ability to control magnetic forces and used it to control small pieces of metal for his jutsu. Naruto and Sasuke stood there with their mouths agape and stared wide-eyed at the gray-haired man. That is so cool. Naruto yelled in triumph. I have a bloodline of a cage. Yes, I suggest that you practice both repelling and attracting different things, it could come in handy someday. The Sandaime suggested. In the meantime, I believe that your mother should be arriving shortly to turn in her report, so why don't you two just wait here for a while? True to his word, Anko walked into the office not 3 minutes later to deliver her report. It was a straightforward mission, guarding the Fire Country's daimyo from a missing nin. It wasn't very hard, and she finished early. When Naruto explained about his new bloodline, Anko smirked and ruffled his hair. All right, from now on I expect to have to try during our kunai duels. This earned a groan from Naruto, who hadn't inherited his mother's love of kunai, much to her disappointment. Naruto's birthday, October 10th, rolled around rather quickly. He still hadn't perfected using his magnetic abilities, but he was getting better. Dawn came early and the boys were awoken by Anko's usual greeting, a bucketful of cold water. After a quick warm-up, read 5 hours of being chased by your mother, who is throwing kunai at you. The trio headed home for brunch. As the day wore on, both Sasuke and Anko noticed that Naruto was more and more reluctant to leave the apartment. They figured it had to do with the Kyuubi, and when they asked him, he explained that the villagers always hated him more today and had grown accustomed to staying inside to minimize contact with drunk and/or irate villagers. Anko decided to stay and comfort her son more that night, and so Sasuke was the only one to go out to enjoy the festival, although it was rather subdued now that he knew of Naruto's burden. He watched as the smaller children ran around, enjoying the games and food of the festival. In reality, Sasuke was appalled by the villagers' treatment of Naruto. He had only come out to honor the Uchiha who had died in the attack, and then he planned on returning back to the apartment. After a nice speech by the Hokage, Sasuke walked back towards the apartment, passing different restaurants along the way. He heard different people talking in various states of inebriation about different worries, from raising their kids to the state of the village. Once he returned home, he joined his adoptive mother and brother for dessert before he headed to bed. As he was taking his dishes over to the sink, he looked out the window at the sky, noting the new moon. But what interested him the most was the group of flickering orange lights that were making their way towards the apartment building. He didn't immediately recognize the glow of torches, simply passing them off as part of the festivities, but he did seem to recognize the silver-haired Chunin leading a group of 20 or 30 people. What is Mizuki-sensei doing? He thought. It wasn't until he heard the shouts of, "Kill the demon." Then it hit him. Shit. Anko-ka-san, there's a mob outside. Sasuke yelled in warning. What? The purple-haired Chunin yelled as the door to the apartment was kicked in. The first person in the doorway was greeted by a kunai to the shoulder, courtesy of an enraged mother. The second person met a similar fate, this time from Sasuke. Mizuki forced his way towards the door, loosing shuriken as he entered and multiplying them with cage shuriken no jutsu, shadow shuriken technique. He was absolutely dumbfounded when the multitude of metal seemed to slow and hover in mid-air. You will not hurt Ka-san. Naruto screamed and repelled the shuriken back towards the mass of now shocked villagers. Mizuki was able to use a kawarimi no jutsu, replacement technique, to avoid the multitude of steel-throwing stars. Shuriken are not as lethal as kunai, unless they embed themselves in the throat or head, so damage to the mob was minimal. However, the only person standing was Mizuki, who took the moment of shock to organize another attack on the demon. He knew he couldn't hope to beat a Chunin like Anko, so he decided to try and burn out the three ninja. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. Fire type. Grand Fireball technique. Mizuki then unleashed a very large ball of fire towards the apartment, only for his fireball to be doused by two cries of, "Sweet and Sujinheki." Water type. Water barrier, from Naruto and Sasuke. How do you know that? Mizuki stammered as he froze upon seeing the boys perform the jutsu. Then he noticed that both boys had red eyes with comma marks circling the iris. Shish Sharingan. That's not possible. He watched as Naruto raised his right arm and leveled it at him, while Sasuke simply smirked at his brother's antics. Suddenly Mizuki felt his arms begin to fall asleep. Then his legs, and the last thing he remembered before he passed out was wondering what the hell was going on. Very quickly, Anbu swarmed Anko's apartment, and before too long the Hokage appeared, a look of grim anger on his face as he watched the Anbu round up the members of the incapacitated mob. He walked over to Anko, who was checking on her sons, making sure they were okay. Would you three be able to tell me what happened? The old man asked. Hokage-sama, Sasuke began, stifling a yawn due to exhaustion. These people were trying to kill Naruto. His eyes drooped into sleep as he was talking. The Hokage noticed that Naruto was also drifting off to sleep, so he suggested that Anko move them to bed, and that she give the report after that was done. After moving the two into their beds, a very angry Anko moved back towards the living room and addressed the Hokage. Hokage-sama, those people broke down the door and were calling for my son's head, so Sasuke and I defended our home. Then that Chunin used cage shuriken no jutsu and Naruto stopped them with his new bloodline before throwing them back at the crowd. That put most of them out of commission, but Mizuki managed to get out of the way and tried to burn down the apartment. Naruto and Sasuke were able to stop him using Sujinheki, and then I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I think Naruto used his magnetic bloodline again to do something to Mizuki and made him pass out. Anko spat, incensed that people would be prejudiced against her son in such a manner. The fact that the two boys were able to use a jutsu like the water barrier was astounding to the Hokage. Anko, where did they get the water for the jutsu from? He asked, perplexed. I guess from the sink. Sasuke left it on because they broke through the door. She replied, picking up some things that had been scattered by the intrusion. To be able to keep a technique like that up at their age, I believe that we can expect them to grow up to be very strong. The Hokage remarked. The day following the mob attack on Naruto dawned with gray skies, threatening to pour rain, and an unusual humidity for the fall weather. Both boys were sleeping soundly when Anko decided to wake them up around 8 in the morning. After their display last night, they deserved to rest up. Quickly shaking Naruto and Sasuke awake, she hurried them out of bed and told them that breakfast was ready and that they had matters to discuss. The boys entered the small kitchen, dining room after a few minutes and rubbing the sleep from their eyes muttered a thanks, as they accepted their breakfast of cereal and toast. First off, Anko started, her face holding no emotion, I want to congratulate the two of you on your performance last night. The way you boys were able to use the water barrier at your age shows great potential and chakra control. Secondly, I want to know what you did to Mizuki. She spat out the silver-haired man's name like she was cursing. The boys exchanged sheepish glances, which were quickly covered by mischievous grins. Well, ever since I discovered the magnetic bloodline, I was looking for a way to attack people directly with it. I've been trying to pull the iron from the ground and tried to do the same thing to humans. But since I can't go and try it on people, I haven't gotten very far. Last night, I think I used the fox's power, and that was how I was able to beat Mizuki-sen, Mizuki. Naruto explained. If nothing else, Naruto had adopted his mother's ideals about hating people. If they crossed him wrong like last night, they were forever an anathema, and he would treat them as such. I just wish he would have used some cool jutsu, so I could have copied them. Sasuke complained. This elicited a laugh from everyone and the mood switched to lighter conversation before the boys had to leave for school. Life settled down and fell into routine for the three. 2 years passed without incident and the boys were starting their, hopefully, final year in the academy. The two had grown up and closer together than anyone could have hoped for. Sasuke had grown close to 5 feet 3 inches, and showed no signs of slowing down, while Naruto was smaller, at 4 feet 11 inches, but was a bit quicker than his brother, who was physically stronger. That day at the academy, the class was reviewing the different techniques that they might have to demonstrate at their graduation exam. The selected skill today was the Henge no Jutsu or transformation. As Iruka-sensei called each member of the class up to change into a copy of him, he couldn't be more proud of his students. They were easily one of the best overall groups he had ever taught. Haruno Sakura. The brown-haired Chunin called out. The pink-haired Sasuke fangirl quickly moved to the front of the class and formed the correct hand seals before calling out, Henge. A puff of smoke appeared and after it disappeared, a perfect copy of Iruka smiled back at the teacher. Very good, Sakura. He admonished the girl. Next up is Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto made his way down the rows of desks and stood in the front of the class. It had been decided after much arguing and yelling, that Naruto should keep the name Uzumaki, since Orochimaru would come back for the boy if he found out he was alive. The only people who knew him as Mitarashi Naruto were Sasuke, Anko, Iruka, Kakashi and the Hokage. Iruka had originally been skeptical of allowing the Kyuubi container into the academy, however after seeing how hard the boy worked and how he interacted with the other students, he grew to like the energetic boy. Naruto adopted the classic Sasuke pose and slouched a bit, before performing the technique perfectly. Good job, Naruto. Next up, Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke sauntered to the front in his typical lazy, I don't care type of manner, before lazily forming the seals. No one noticed the unusual twinkle in the raven-haired boy's eyes before it was too late. Henge. The boy said, in a very lazy manner. It was so lazy that it made Shikamaru seem energetic and playful. As the smoke cleared, the sight of a naked woman with black hair greeted Iruka. As his nose erupted in a fountain of blood, he could only think one sentence. The hell, I figured Naruto or Kiba would try something like that, but Sasuke. The class erupted in laughter from the male population and indignation from the females of the class. They couldn't bring themselves to believe that their beloved, Sasuke-kun, would do something so perverted. In another cloud of smoke, Sasuke returned to normal and broodingly walked back to his seat. Or rather, he walked back to Naruto's seat. As Iruka got back up from the floor with wads of tissue stuck up his nose to prevent further blood loss, he noticed the two Sasukes and groaned. He had been pranked. He watched as the second Sasuke disappeared in a cloud of smoke and was replaced by Naruto, who promptly doubled over in laughter at his teacher's expense. Kami, Iruka-sensei, you should have seen the look on your face when I did that. The blonde and black-haired youth cried out in laughter, rolling in the aisle. That night was interesting, to say the least. Anko was torn between outrage and maternal pride at her son's antics. She was very proud of the fact that he could keep up two illusions, which admittedly were his worst skill, and that he had pulled such an elaborate and hilarious ruse. On the other hand, he had done something perverted, and like all women, Anko despised perverts. She settled on increasing the ferocity in her training. Neither Sasuke nor Naruto showed up to class without sporting new cuts from their mother's kunai. Okay, today we're going to be reviewing the Bunshin no Jutsu. Clone technique, Iruka explained. Naruto groaned. Bunshin was his worst skill. It wasn't that he didn't know how, he had copied the seals with his Sharingan and practiced the technique for hours, but he simply couldn't do it correctly, and for the life of him, he couldn't figure out why. Sasuke didn't know what was wrong, and his mother wasn't much more help. She figured that it had to do with his abnormally large amount of chakra and, in comparison, his poor chakra control. Truthfully, Naruto had been practicing his control since he started training with Kakashi, but with all his extra chakra, he always seemed to be behind the others. Suddenly inspiration struck him well, it struck him. He'd ask the old man. He'll know what to do. After class, Naruto told Sasuke to go on home without him and that he had something to talk with the Hokage about. Sasuke was about to follow his brother anyway, but was sidetracked when a group of fangirls began to chase after him. Naruto headed towards the Hokage's office and asked to see the old man. The secretary told him to wait, because the Hokage was in a meeting and couldn't be disturbed. As the meeting ended, representatives from the surrounding villages exited the office and Naruto walked past them all into the Sandame's office. Hey, I've got a problem, Naruto said, when he saw that he had the Hokage's attention. I can't do a Bunshin and I can't figure out why. Mom thinks it's 'cause I've got such high amounts of chakra, but she's not sure. Can you perform the technique for me? Asked the gray-haired leader. Naruto performed the technique and was rewarded with 3 dead and deformed clones. Yes, I would agree with your mother, you do have too much chakra. The Sandame said. Now, Naruto, there are other forms of the Bunshin that are actually more useful. There's the Mizu Bunshin that creates a solid clone out of water, and the Tsuchi Bunshin is made of earth. These require more chakra than normal, so you should be able to do those without problem. The only problem is that we don't have any way to teach you those particular techniques. If you ever encounter them, do me a favor and copy them, that way we can write them down. The old man chuckled at the joke. The only other variation we have of the Bunshin is the Cage Bunshin, Shadow Clone, which takes up a large amount of chakra, but it creates solid clones. Unfortunately, since it uses such a large amount of chakra, it would be a bad idea to try and copy it, so you will have to learn it the old-fashioned way. Now it is a kinjutsu, so I can't just give you a copy of the jutsu, but if you'll stop by my office, say, this weekend, I will teach you how to perform the jutsu. Naruto sat in a chair and stared at the old man. He was going to learn a kinjutsu. Plus, he would be able to pass the graduation exam this way. Okay, I'll stop by over the weekend to learn this jutsu. See ya later, old man. Naruto exclaimed as he exited the office. That weekend Naruto returned to the office of the Hokage to learn the forbidden technique Cage Bunshin. It turned out to be easier than he expected, but the old man didn't lie when he said it used a lot of chakra. The principle behind the skill was simple enough: take a normal Bunshin and put about 10 times more chakra than necessary to create one clone, and then another 3 or 4 times as much chakra to sustain it for any reasonable length of time. In the end, it was very easy to see why it was forbidden. He had agreed to show Sasuke, but both boys realized that the full-blooded Uchiha didn't have the chakra reserves necessary to perform the technique. However, the two did find another form of solid Bunshin they could both use. They were watching some of the different shinobi of the village train, and found Kakashi was dueling with a green spandex-clad man with thick eyebrows and a bowl cut, except that Kakashi was a Mizu Bunshin. The two boys then conned the lazy Chunin into showing them the technique, which they learned and used in their training routines. Time moved quickly after that weekend. The two boys continued to train, although they also found time to do other activities. Both Naruto and Sasuke had become friends quickly with Shikamaru and Choji, although it was mostly Naruto who hung out with the lazy boy and the potato chip-addicted preteen. Sasuke had struck up a rivalry with Hyuga Neji, the previous year's #1 rookie, and seemed to be competing against each other in just about everything. After nearly 3 straight years of being rejected by Sasuke, many of his fangirls decided on another tactic. They tried to become friends with Naruto, Shikamaru, and Choji. Naruto hasn't been able to walk through town without being hounded for the last 4 months, while the other two boys have only recently become targets. Luckily for them, or terribly unlucky for Naruto, Shikamaru's laziness and Choji's constant eating seemed to be turn-offs in their own right, while Naruto couldn't claim any of the previous self-defense mechanisms and was sorely tempted to try his mother's tactics and begin to throw kunai indiscriminately. The graduation exams rolled around and as expected Sasuke was slated to become Rookie of the Year, while the position of top kunoichi was in a heated argument between Yamanaka Ino and Haruno Sakura, both of whom were gigantic Sasuke fangirls. Naruto was moving between the top half and top quarter of the class, largely due to his poor effort on written assignments, as he often responded when asked about his poor grades. Who cares what the middle name of the Nadime's brother's third youngest sister was? And who cares if Tsunade of the legendary Sannin is the granddaughter of the Shodime? I mean honestly, when will that ever save my life? Of course, what people fail to notice while he is ranting on like this, is the fact that he knew that Tsunade was a part of the legendary Sannin and was the granddaughter of the first Hokage. It was during one of these rants that he actually got to know Shikamaru, after the lazy genius noticed that Naruto knew those facts. While Naruto may have given up physical pranking for the most part, he still loved to mess with people's heads. As Naruto entered the exam room, he felt confident that he would pass. Before he would have been worried sick over his inability to perform a Bunshin, but now he was able to 2 different kinds of Bunshin, he felt very sure in himself. Okay Naruto, you have to perform a Bunshin to pass, Iruka said. Deciding to play it relatively safe, Naruto created 3 Mizu Bunshin from the glass of water on Iruka's desk. Congratulations, you pass, Iruka said, After he found his voice again and handed him a Konoha forehead protector. After that there was time for celebration. The next day, Naruto and Sasuke showed up for their Genin team assignments. I'd like to congratulate all of you for passing the exam. You are all true shinobi of Konohagakure and should always wear the symbol of the leaf with pride. Iruka explained as he began assigning teams. It wasn't until he reached Team 7 that Naruto paid any attention. Team 7, Uchiha Sasuke, Uzumaki Naruto. At this, the two brothers exchanged high fives and head nods in silent approval. And Haruno Sakura. Iruka finished. Team 8 will be, but before Iruka could continue, he was cut off by Sakura's voice. Iruka-sensei, why am I on a team with Naruto? Won't that make the teams unbalanced? She asked in a way that made it sound less insulting than it really was. Normally you'd be right, Sakura, but Sasuke was the #1 rookie. Naruto ended up around the middle of the class, and although you are the second-ranked kunoichi, all of the teachers thought you could learn the most from being with Sasuke and Naruto. Iruka explained. Now, Team 8 will be Aburame Shino, Hyuga Hinata, and Inuzuka Kiba. Team 9, and with that Naruto quit paying attention again. However, he was rudely interrupted from his lazing when Team 10 was announced. Team 10, Nara Shikamaru, Akamichi Choji, and Yamanaka Ino. This got a groan of displeasure from Shikamaru and Ino. Your Junin senseis will be here shortly to collect your teams. Iruka explained before leaving the room as various Junin came into the room and picked up teams. Eventually the only team left was Team 7. Sakura was trying to talk with Sasuke, who had created a Mizu Bunshin and then used a basic camouflage jutsu to hide while he sat with Naruto, who was somewhere in between sleeping and daydreaming. 2.5 hours later, a very late Kakashi entered the room, only to be hit on the head with an eraser. He was then forced to dodge 2 kunai, thrown by Sasuke and Naruto, while Sakura simply tried to stammer an apology for her rude and childish teammate, completely ignoring the fact that Sasuke had also thrown a kunai at the Junin, and if anything was aiming to do more damage than Naruto, since he was aiming for Kakashi's family jewels. Well, my first impression of you guys is, I really don't like you. The pepper-haired Junin replied. Meet me on the roof. With that he disappeared in a cloud of smoke. When the 3 genin arrived at the roof, they found Kakashi sitting on a ledge, reading one of his perverted books. He noticed that Naruto and Sasuke arrived first, followed by a very wet, and very angry Sakura. What happened? The Junin asked. She tried to hug a Mizu Bunshin. Came Naruto's reply, his face creeping into a large grin, which was mirrored by Sasuke. Anyway, why don't you all introduce yourselves? You know, likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams for the future, those kinds of things. Kakashi ordered. Why don't you go first? Asked a drenched Sakura. My name is Hitaki Kakashi. I don't feel like telling you my likes, my dislikes are personal. As for dreams for the future, I suppose I have a couple of hobbies. Okay, you're up, Pinky. My name is Haruno Sakura. My likes are, she glanced at Sasuke. My dream for the future, glanced at Sasuke again. My hobbies, stared at Sasuke. I hate Naruto and Ino pig. Oh great, a love-struck fangirl. How come all the kunoichi these days only care about boys? Why couldn't I have gotten one like that girl guy has? She's very talented and useful. Kakashi's sweat dropped. For the first time in his life, he actually envied Maida guy. The world was ending, he was sure of it. Okay, one of you two, I don't really care which one. He said and motioned towards Naruto and Sasuke. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I like my family, I dislike, no I hate, my fangirls, I don't have any hobbies, my dream is to start my own family and to help Ka-san. Of course this is what Sakura heard. I like my family, and Sakura. I want to marry Sakura and love her for all of eternity. This caused her to try and hug the Uchiha again, only to find herself hugging Kakashi, who Sasuke had used as a replacement. This, it was safe to say, caused Naruto to fall to the ground laughing harder than ever, clutching his sides. Ha ha, my name is Uzumaki Naruto, ha ha ha. I like ramen and my family, I dislike anyone who would hurt my family. My hobbies are trying out new ramen flavors, and training, and I want to become Hokage and haha help my family achieve their dreams. He stated, his words turning into fits of laughter every once in a while. Well, that's it for introductions. Meet me tomorrow at 7 o'clock at Training Ground 32 for survival training. Kakashi exclaimed as he went to leave. But then he noticed that both boys had their Sharingan active, hoping to copy the technique he used to teleport away earlier. He decided to simply take the stairs. As he walked away, he heard the angered cries from the two. Damn you, we will figure out how you do that cool technique. Sakura was very angry. It was 9 o'clock in the morning, and neither her teammates nor sensei was at the training grounds. Sure, Kakashi had shown up late yesterday, but surely he wouldn't do the same thing twice, right? Wrong. Not only was he late, he was even later than yesterday. Not to mention the fact that Naruto and Sasuke weren't there yet either. Just as she was about to storm out of the area and find her tardy teammates, the two boys in question appeared on the edge of the area, chatting and walking at a relaxed pace. Seeing the two walk in so casually made Sakura's already boiling blood bubble over. What the hell are you two doing? She screamed at the boys when they came in range of her voice. You're 2 hours late. Oh, Sasuke-kun, did that baka slow you down? I know you wouldn't be late if he didn't. She gushed at her crush. The pair was saved from answering her by the arrival of their gray-haired sensei. Yo! Kakashi greeted the team with his standard introduction. You're late. Sakura bellowed at the Chunin. Well, you see, there was this dog attacking a mime, and he couldn't call for help, so I had to spend the next hour trying to decipher his gestures. He wasn't very good. Then when I took him to the hospital, he still refused to talk, even to give his name and other information, so that took a while. Kakashi explained. You're lying. Sakura accused bitterly. Anyway, your test is to get these from me, before this timer goes off. Kakashi explained, showing the 2 silver bells. If you don't, I'll send you back to the academy. He drawled lazily. But sensei, there are only 2 bells. Sakura dumbly stated. Yes, well, this exam does have a high rate of failure. Their sensei explained. Well, the timer is set for noon, so you've got about 3 hours to get a bell. Begin. With that, the 3 genin hopefuls disappeared into the surrounding forest. Well, Naruto and Sasuke are well hidden, they might actually be able to pass this time, if they can get Sakura to work with them. Kakashi thought, while taking note of the surroundings. All 3 genin were hidden well, although he could still see them, but then again, he wasn't a Chunin for nothing. Meanwhile, Sakura was watching Kakashi impatiently. She was sure that Naruto would jump the gun and attack their sensei first, but it seemed like he had more sense than she gave him credit for. I must try and find Sasuke-kun, and then we can come up with a plan to get those bells. She thought as she searched the area for her crush, however she couldn't find him or Naruto. She quietly moved around the shrubs and bushes trying to find the Uchiha heir, but she failed. As time began to tick away, she became more and more worried. If she didn't get a bell soon, she would never be on the same team as her beloved Sasuke-kun. As she was searching, Kakashi found himself occupied with a 2-sided attack from the boys. Naruto attacked from the left and Sasuke the right. The boys targeted his feet, which the Chunin easily dodged by jumping in the air, only to meet a pair of kunai thrown from the boys on his way up. He was taken by their thoroughness, the kunai didn't leave him room to dodge them, and so he quickly blocked them. Before he could be too proud of himself, he was knocked back towards earth by the boys, this time from above. One set must be clones of some sort. Kakashi concluded. But damn, that stung. He was met once again by two fists, courtesy of Naruto and Sasuke, his own weight increasing the force of the blow. However, his body was quickly replaced by a section of log. Shit. Kawarimi. Replacement technique, the boys thought, before scattering back into the woods to hide. Meanwhile, Kakashi was nursing an aching back and thanking his lucky stars that the boys were slower coming up than going down. If the attack had been coordinated and struck at the same time, they might have very well gotten the bells. Sakura saw the display of taijutsu from the tag team with mouth agape and eyes wide. Who knew that Naruto and Sasuke could fight so well together? This time she was able to keep her eyes trained on the boys and she quickly made her way towards the two before she was interrupted. Yo! Kakashi's voice traveled to her ears from behind and slightly above her and she quickly whirled around, kunai in her hand in a defensive stance. But when her eyes caught up to her body, she didn't find her teacher. In fact, she didn't find anything. What she did find was a big black emptiness that engulfed her. Suddenly out of the darkness a weak voice emerged, calling for her assistance. Sakura. Why you need to? Kakashi he. Sasuke's broken voice was quickly followed up by his equally broken body, kunai puncturing his arms like a pin cushion and he was showing signs of obvious blood loss. Upon seeing her crush's deformed features, Sakura proceeded to promptly faint at the genjutsu she had been ensnared in. Kakashi was watching the kunoichi and sweat dropped at her inability to recognize the obvious mental attack. Okay, maybe Megan. Narakumi no Jutsu, demonic illusion, hell viewing technique, was a little much. Kakashi thought, nah, it isn't a high-level genjutsu or anything, she should have been able to detect it. The report said she'd make a great genjutsu specialist, like Kurenai. Now there's a thought, how come she wasn't put with her? Kakashi was unable to think too long, he still had two genin to humiliate, or test, however he felt like seeing it. Much to his dismay, however, the two siblings were very difficult to find, causing the Chunin to consider using his dogs once or twice. But such tricks shouldn't be wasted on genin, and he decided to follow the sparse clues they left about for him. Twice he thought he had cornered the duo, only to find them to be shadow clones using henge, or Mizu Bunshin. These two would be very interesting to teach. The gray-haired man mused. Eventually, he was able to find them. His excellent tracking abilities and above-average speed helped him locate the boys. They were in a clearing, taking stock of their kunai and other gear. They had shown great skill at trap setting and recognition. They had picked through the double-layered traps he had laid with ease and it was unlikely that they would encounter more than 2 layers of traps. Before he could even greet them, he was forced to dodge a set of kunai courtesy of Naruto and a swift taijutsu attack from Sasuke. Kakashi was able to block the right jab from the Uchiha, and the ensuing left roundhouse kick. He even managed to grab the boy's left hand as it flew towards his face, but it was during this period of fighting that Naruto snuck up from behind to grab the bells. With both of his hands occupied grappling with Sasuke, Kakashi couldn't use any techniques to stop the younger boy. But he was an elite ninja after all, and he had the perfect solution to this problem. He tripped the attacking boy. Yep, Mr. I'll be the next Hokage, was tripped and thus missed his chance to grab the silver bells that were so critical to their success. Quickly, Kakashi threw Sasuke into his brother, giving him the space to perform a quick counterattack. As the boys picked themselves up from the ground they noticed the glaring absence of their sensei. However, they remembered a pearl of wisdom their mother had implanted with them. If you can't see your enemy, go to a place where you have a good defensive and observational position. The two scattered into the tree branches, just as Kakashi exploded from the ground. The two quickly flashed through the hand seals for Kaden, Hausenka no Jutsu, fire type, mythical phoenix flower, and peppered the surrounding area with the miniature fireballs. Kakashi was forced to dodge them and in doing so, moved him back towards a thick grove of trees. These two will be interesting. Now if they could just figure out the true purpose of this test. The Junin mused to himself, dodging the joint attack from the boys once more. Sasuke quickly flashed through the seals for Hausenka no Jutsu once more, forcing the Junin to dodge to his right and confront Naruto, who flashed through the seals for Kaden, Gukaku no Jutsu Fire type, Grand Fire Ball, and inhaled deeply before launching a large ball of flame from his mouth. As the fire settled down, the duo was able to make out the form of a tree section, once more the victim of a Kawarimi no Jutsu, courtesy of the masked Junin. Said Junin was currently cursing the two for actually making him work so hard to put them down. Their tandem style of attacking was very good, and both boys were better fighters than either of their profiles had indicated. Sasuke had much more chakra than his profile stated and a greater level of control as well. Naruto was simply faster and stronger than indicated. Together the two made an excellent team and in the coming years would prove to be invaluable to the Leaf. As he was mulling this over in his mind, he heard the ring of the timer, indicating that the three had run out of time. Well, I guess that it's Sakura I'll be tying to the tree this time. Kakashi stated more to himself than to the boys who were stewing over their inability to retrieve the bells. Sakura opened her eyes and found herself staring at her sensei. Well, actually she was staring at his legs, and when she tried to stand up, she found herself tied to a large wooden stump. To her right were the boys, who still seemed angry that they hadn't retrieved the bells. Well, that was informative. The voice of her tardy sensei drifted towards her ears. Sakura, your profile stated that you were excellent at recognizing genjutsu, but you fell for a fairly simple one. If you can't focus under pressure, then you will not survive your first battle between ninja. Sasuke and Naruto, your planning was excellent, your execution was nearly flawless, and you both showed great potential, but you lost track of time, which is one of the more important things a shinobi must keep track of, especially in the field. Although you all failed, Naruto and Sasuke showed that the records of this village are a bit outdated, so I will give you another chance. But it will be much harder than before. He tossed 2 bentos towards the boys. You two can eat, but don't give any to Sakura. Be ready to come at me with the intent to kill me after lunch. With that he poofed away in a cloud of white smoke, leaving the threesome alone. The boys began to eat their lunches, but stopped about halfway through. Sakura was inwardly fuming over the fact that it was her own uselessness that nearly cost them their opportunity to become genin. Her stomach was growling, already having digested her light breakfast, and wishing that she could eat the food the boys had left over. It came as a great surprise to her when the 2 boys offered their remaining food to the pink-haired girl. Here, eat up, Sasuke directed. But, Kakashi-sensei told you guys not to give me any food. She dumbly stated. Yeah, but he isn't here right now, and besides, we're pretty sure the idea of the test is to exhibit teamwork. I mean, why else would teams be made of 3 people? He can't send one of us back to the academy, it's either all or nothing. Naruto explained, filling her in on the conversation he and Sasuke had earlier as Sasuke cut through the ropes tying her to the stump. Sakura quickly rubbed the feeling back into her wrists and was about to take the first bite of food, when Kakashi reappeared in another cloud of smoke. You, pass. His voice changing from unbridled fury to a complimentary tone in mere seconds. He was greeted by 2 smirks and a look of surprise from his students. Naruto and Sasuke were right, you are in a 3-man team for a reason. I can't fail just 1 or 2 of you, it's all or nothing. Sasuke and Naruto showed that they could work together very well, but to be a team, the 3 of you must be willing to cooperate and work as a team. Do you see that monument over there? That is the monument for fallen heroes. They have all died in the name of this village. Some of them should be here right now, walking around, but they aren't because they either couldn't, or didn't work as a team. Remember, the 3 of you are a team, but you are more than just 3 names on a piece of paper in some filing cabinet. To become a complete team, you must trust each other to do what you alone cannot. From this point forth, you are Team 7, but you must become comrades and friends if you truly wish to become a team. Remember, in this world of shinobi, those who break the rules are considered trash. None of the other teams I have instructed shared their food with the other member. They were foolish enough to listen to my instructions, but those who would abandon their friends, they are worse than trash. The three genin sat, listening to Kakashi's explanation. They were all thinking the same thing. It seems like he knows this from personal experience. Come to think of it, he probably does. Well, anyway, meet me at the Hokage Tower tomorrow for your first mission. With that, Kakashi poofed away in a cloud of smoke to the chorus of curses coming from the two boys. That night there was a celebration in the Mitarashi household. Enko took the boys out to dinner for their accomplishments. She told the boys that no one had ever passed Kakashi's test before, so she was really proud of them. She bought each of her sons a new set of kunai as well as an imitation of her own trademark trench coat. Sasuke's was a dark blue that almost seemed black and had the Uchiha crest on the back. It had many hidden pockets for carrying weapons as well as other supplies. Naruto's was a dark gray and the only markings on it was the hybrid Uchiha fan and Uzumaki swirl design he had created. It was proudly worn on the collar of his coat. It was a great surprise when the Sandaime also gave them some gifts. Sasuke received a very old manual from the Hokage, that was supposedly from his ancestors. It was all about how to manipulate fire for different techniques and is thought to have led to the creation of many of the newer fire jutsu. Naruto received different books and scrolls that taught the basics of sealing. The Sandaime explained that while the Yondaime didn't have a bloodline limit in the traditional sense, he did create many different seals that could only be used by people of his blood. Sarutobi had learned, in his many dealings with Naruto, that if any information was written down, the boy would pick it up very quickly. It was when information was simply shown to him, or during oral examinations that the boys struggled. In truth, Sarutobi knew the two types of clone he had mentioned to the boy, but he couldn't teach them to Naruto. He knew that sooner or later, the boys would probably copy the Mizu Bunshin from Kakashi, or an opponent. As for the Tsuchi Bunshin, Sarutobi himself had learned the technique as a gift when he first became Hokage, with the understanding that he never write it down or teach it to anyone. He wasn't going to break the trust of the elderly Tsuchikage over a matter as trivial as a technique. As he watched the family finish dinner and joke around, he couldn't help but be proud. The will of fire was clearly evident in this young generation, and it shone on a bright future for Konoha. Enko was exceptionally proud of her sons, however, she also was a bit weary for them. Naruto had never been outside of the village, both for his own safety. There was talk of an organization which was interested in the demon vessels, and because of what he might possibly represent to the village. A weapon of great power. She shuddered every time she thought of her son that way. She had heard rumors of another vessel, from the Wind Country, who had a taste for blood and was about her son's age. She only hoped that they didn't come to the next Chunin exam, or there might be a fight of catastrophic size. Sasuke hadn't been outside the village since the massacre. Since he represented the last of a bloodline, his survival was key to the village. Letting him go away would be a golden opportunity for assassins from other villages. When they left the village on a mission, she didn't know how they would react. Naruto would probably like it, a chance to see something new, learn new techniques, or just meet new people. Sasuke, she didn't know how he would take it. In the almost 3 years since he had been living with her, he had changed remarkably. He was lively and energetic. He was obsessive with his training, but Naruto was able to reach him, and she was glad. If he had turned into an Avenger, she didn't know what she would have done. Probably beat him into a pulp. She mused to herself. It was then that she decided to be a part of her son's first mission outside of the village. That way, they would have a familiar face if something were to go wrong. What am I thinking? She mentally berated herself. They have to do a bunch of crappy D-rank missions first. I wonder who will take it the worst. Naruto. Or Sasuke. She couldn't help but smile and snicker at the mental images of her sons' faces when they found out that their first 20 or so missions would probably involve weeding some lazy civilians' garden. 2 weeks have passed since Team 7 passed their test, and the members were well entrenched into the shinobi life by now. They were used to getting up early, only to remember that Kakashi was always 2 hours late. They were used to training, which consisted mainly of physical exercises and light sparring. But, they weren't used to the crappy D-rank missions they were receiving. While Sasuke kept up an emotionless facade, he was inwardly steaming, swearing on the graves of his deceased parents, that if he had to weed one more garden, he was going to find a way to resurrect the dead members of the clan and then kill them himself. Naruto was angry as well. He was pissed that he was doing grunt work when he could be off chasing bandits or doing something productive, like training, or eating ramen, anything to stop the monotony. Sakura was getting bored doing the same tedious jobs over and over, but she was also glad that these short missions gave the team ample time to train, something she realized she needed to do much more of. She was currently waiting for her 3 other teammates at their regular meeting place, a small bridge that spanned a small river and was roughly halfway between the 3 genins' houses. She was adamant about punctuality and continued to show up before her teammates, although now it was only about 10 minutes before the others now. She was currently researching different ways to increase her power. Given that she had excellent chakra control, albeit a small amount, she found 2 different fields that were perfect for her, medicine and genjutsu. She was trying to figure out which area to concentrate on, but was having a hard time deciding. The 2 weeks had shown a marked increase in the trio's teamwork. She learned a lot about her teammates and was rethinking her previous notions about them, especially Naruto. Before, she would have written the multicolored-haired boy off as a general idiot and fool that had only just squeaked by the academy, but now, he had proven himself to be intelligent, physically strong, and cheerful, despite these strange looks he often received. Sakura had heard rumors about her teammate, but she didn't know what to think of them. From what she had pieced together, she would never just go up and ask him. He had been separated from his mother after the Kyuubi attack and not rejoined with her until he was 7. His mother was a Chunin and was the former apprentice of the traitor Sannin, Orochimaru. Due to her connections with the powerful ninja, she was often disrespected and sometimes hated. For whatever reason, Sasuke had moved in with the 2 and had been living with them since his family died. But, just because the people don't like his mom, do they really hate him? She thought. When she told her sensei that the things she disliked were Ino and Naruto, she was basing those on what she had seen. Many of the civilians of the village often shot glares at the boy and muttered curses behind his back. When she asked her parents why, the answer she was looking for was skirted, and if her parents were in a good mood, they would simply tell her she wouldn't understand and that she should probably keep her distance from him. Yet all of the new data she had told her that Naruto was trustworthy and protective of his teammates and would never hurt anyone that didn't deserve it. He was a mystery, and she would figure him out sooner or later. As Sakura was contemplating Naruto's life, the rest of her team was making their way towards the bridge for their next mission. She absent-mindedly greeted the boys as they arrived only minutes before Kakashi showed up, and they made their way towards the Hokage Tower for their assignment. Damn them. Damn them to hell. Sakura was fuming as she waited for her tardy sensei. Somehow, the boys had managed to talk the Hokage into giving them a C-rank mission instead of the boring and safe D-rank ones they normally got. She was beside herself. She didn't want to look weak in front of Sasuke, but she doubted her ability to perform up to par on the harder mission. Hence the cursing of her teammates, them and that annoyingly late sensei. I mean, would it kill him to be on time once? Apparently it would, because he was running an astounding 2.5 hours late. If he didn't have the client with them, then the three would have left a long time ago, with or without Kakashi. The threat potential on sea-level missions was mostly bandits and those were rare. Yo, sorry we're late, there was this drowning fish and it needed to be given CPR and someone glued my mask to my face, so I had to instruct Tazuna-san here how to do it. Kakashi greeted the trio with a smile, or at least what they had come to interpret as a smile, and a wave of his head. Tazuna was simply staring at the man in disbelief. He was buying supplies and he tells them I was giving CPR to a fish. Tazuna thought as Sakura yelled, "Liar!" At the Chunin. The group was walking along the road between Konoha and the Wave Country and it was very boring. The only interesting thing was a quick lesson about the different shinobi nations and their leaders. Besides the Hokage, when this was mentioned, Naruto supplied that he would be the greatest Hokage of all time one day. There was the Raikage, Kazekage, Mizukage, and Tsuchikage, who were the leaders of the Cloud Village, Sand Village, Mist Village and Stone Village, respectively. When he was done talking, the team and their charge drifted back into a lull of inactivity. Naruto, who was in the front, was searching for signs of bandit attacks or ambushes. Sasuke, who was behind him, was mostly sightseeing and enjoying his time out of the village. Tazuna was worried that he was sending these three kids to their death if they were to encounter the true reason he needed escorting, and Sakura returned to pondering over her teammates. They became so entrenched in their various activities that when an inconspicuous puddle came into view, no one immediately realized that something was wrong. Kakashi was the first to notice that a rather large puddle had formed in the road when there hadn't been any rain for days. Naruto probably would have overlooked it, if he hadn't been bored and activated his Sharingan. It was a habit he had developed, although he wasn't sure why, but if he got bored, he would activate the Sharingan and try to copy new jutsu or just the way people acted and walked. On this occasion he saw the chakra flowing from the deposit of water and silently signaled Sasuke that there were enemies about. Sasuke, in turn, turned towards Kakashi, catching the attention of Sakura, but the Chunin didn't seem to be paying attention, but Sasuke noticed his eyes were harder than normal. He must have noticed them. He reasoned and turned his attention to the front, where Naruto was deciding what to do. This is AC rank. There shouldn't be any chance of shinobi encounters. Naruto reasoned to himself. But if I attack them and they aren't after Tazuna-san, then I could start something I can't get out of. He gulped at the thought of possibly attacking another Chunin. He settled for a simple strategy. He passed through the puddle and watching the reaction of the liquid, trotting in it purposely. Sasuke followed suit, but Sakura and Tazuna walked around it, while Kakashi just ignored it. As he passed, the puddle quickly changed shape into two men, whose faces were covered with horned masks bearing the symbol of the hidden Mist Village. They had metal gauntlets on their arms, connected by a serrated metal chain, which was covered with a deadly poison. The masked duo quickly ran forward and wrapped their chain around Kakashi, and before anyone could do much more than look surprised, they pulled the sharp chain through the Chunin, separating his body into many different sections. One down. Their voices were given a deeper timbre by the masks they wore, and they were good tag team fighters. They quickly moved towards Tazuna and Sakura. Sakura was frozen, seeing her sensei ripped apart by the two masked ninja in front of her, and it wasn't until the forms of Naruto and Sasuke leapt in front of her and their client that she realized how close the two attackers were. Naruto completed the seals for Kaden, Hausenka no Jutsu, forcing the pair to either jump up, due to the area covered by the small fireballs, or disengage the chain and dodge separately. The pair jumped up into the air, just as Naruto intended for them, only to be greeted by a much larger fireball, courtesy of Sasuke. The ball of intense flame connected with the pair, although they were able to lessen much of the damage by disconnecting the chain and twisting to the side. It was during the masked men's dodge that Naruto leapt into the air and threw a pair of kunai attached with wire at the pair, successfully capturing one ninja. the kunai acting as weights like Ebola and then embedding themselves into a tree, with just the slightest help from the boy's bloodline. Meanwhile, Sasuke was engaged with the other ninja in a taijutsu match. He was easily dodging the slowed blows, thanks to a combination of Sharingan and the fact that the armor of his foe was slowing him down. The masked ninja launched a clawed palm at the Uchiha's face, only for the boy to duck under the blow and land a straight jab into the attacking shinobi's stomach, doubling him over. Before the mist ninja could even blink, Sasuke's knee connected with his face, sending his head reeling backwards, once more exposing his stomach. His clawed hands flew to his face to staunch the blood flowing from his nose. Only then did the mist ninja remember the poison on his oversized clawed gloves. Upon impact with his face, the poison on his claws mixed with the blood that was trickling into his mouth through the crack in his mask caused by the boy he was fighting. At first he staggered backwards, probably from the force of Sasuke's knee, but he quickly dropped to his knees before falling on his stomach, dead. Seeing his brother's death, the second ninja tried to cut himself with his own gauntlet, only for it to be forcibly held to his side by an unseen force. Now, we need someone to question. Naruto grinned at the captured foe. Excellent work, you two. Kakashi's lazy voice greeted the ninjas in their charge. Sensei, but how, you, Chain, died. Sakura's gaping mouth was able to form that disconnected sentence after the initial shock of her sensei's return wore off. She glanced at the pieces of his body. A twig was sticking out of his midsection. Wait. A twig. He had used Kawarimi before the deadly duo had cut him with the chain and substituted himself with a section of tree. Kakashi turned to face the captured man and asked who their target was. The masked ninja didn't reply. He reached up and lifted his forehead protector, but from the position of the genin, they couldn't see what he was doing. After a moment, the incapacitated ninja's eyes widened in horror and he began to scream and yell. The bridge maker. Over and over until he passed out. Lowering his headband, Kakashi turned and leveled his gaze at Tazuna. It would seem, he started, that Tazuna-san needs to explain a few things before we continue. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Sakura was more than angry with her luck today. First of all, she was sent on a mission she probably wasn't ready for, and now she was on a mission she definitely wasn't ready for. Damn that drunken man. As she cussed out Tazuna, she wondered who she was more pissed off at. Tazuna, the man who had lied about the mission specs, or Gato, the man who was harassing the people of the Wave Village. The other thought floating around in her mind was her sensei. What was hidden under his protector that it would cause an assassin to cry out in horror? Maybe he lost his eye and he showed him the empty socket. She thought, shuddering at the thought. After Tazuna explained that he was trying to bring relief to the oppressed village by means of the new bridge he was building, much of the mystery surrounding the attack of the Nuke Nin was resolved. The Wave Country village was a once thriving place, until Gato, a ruthless businessman, had set his sights on it. He had entered and wrecked the economy of the town through blockades and violence. If the bridge was completed, it would be a gateway for new supplies and goods to enter the town. After some discussion, and more than a little crying from Tazuna, the team decided it would continue the mission. If the bridge was completed, then not only would the economy of the village return, but trade between the Konoha and the hopefully reinvigorated sea town would blossom. They would request assistance when they reached the relative safety of the town. Kakashi explained that the mission was at least B rank now, and if they encountered a Chunin ninja, it would escalate again to A rank. The group was making good time after the ambush and had an uneventful trip across the water surrounding the Wave Country. After they made landfall, they headed towards Tazuna's house so they could send for help. About midway between the house and their landing spot, Naruto, who was leading the group still, suddenly threw a kunai at a bush to his left. Sasuke quickly followed suit, adding a Gukaku no Jutsu to scorch the area in case Naruto hit anything. As the foliage began to burn down a bit, they discovered a rather terrified snowshoe hare, hugging against the farthest tree for his life. Kakashi quickly doused the fire with a small sweetened jutsu. However, he pondered about the appearance of the hare. That's a snow hare, but it hasn't molted yet, it's the middle of summer, it should have turned brown by now. Unless, it was raised to be used in a replacement. It seems that tougher competition has arrived. He was sure to keep his visible eye open for any signs of their enemy. It was a good thing too, because not 5 minutes after his genins almost barbecued an innocent hare, a giant sword came flying at the team from behind. Everyone, get down now, he ordered, throwing himself at the ground as Sasuke and Sakura managed to bring down their ward and Naruto flattened himself out as well. The sword embedded itself into the trunk of a large tree, and when the group raised their heads to look at the weapon, they found a fairly tall man with spiky brown hair. His forehead protector was askew to his left and his mouth was covered in bandages. He wore no shirt, but his forearms were covered in camouflaged warmers and he stood on his sword with an air of confidence. Ah, the copy ninja, Hitaki Kakashi, no wonder the demon brothers failed to kill the bridge builder. His voice was deep and ominous, sending chills down the backs of Tazuna and Sakura. Naruto and Sasuke were affected a bit, but it was less intense, due to their mother's training. Momochi Zabuza, Nuke Nin of Kurigakure. As you can see, I too read the bingo book. Kakashi replied, his voice didn't carry any of his usual laziness. He once more reached up and lifted the barrier obscuring his left eye. Oh, the Sharingan, I get to see it already. How interesting. Zabuza leapt off his large head cleaver and onto the surface of the water, taking the large sword with him in one movement. He raised his right hand up to his face and raised the index and middle fingers, while his left arm stood straight up, the fingers mimicking those of his other hand. A thick fog suddenly rolled through the area, obscuring the woods and its occupants. The chakra being released by the two Junins was something to be in awe of. Sakura, who was much more aware of chakra signatures than the boys, was having a hard time refraining from screaming in terror. The killing intent of the enemy Junin was focused at the genin and their instructor. Don't worry, Sakura, I won't let any of my teammates die. Kakashi turned towards the team, his eyes closed and a smile played on his lips. Running vertical along the center of his left eye was a long since healed scar. This led to another train of thought for the pink-haired girl. I thought the Sharingan was the bloodline of the Uchiha clan, but then how does Kakashi-sensei have it? Is he related to Sasuke-kun maybe? Suddenly, Zabuza appeared in the center of the defensive perimeter the team had set up around Tazuna, sword stretched across his back, ready to slay the three genin. But almost as soon as he appeared, Kakashi was there, planting a kunai into the side of the enemy, only for the body to turn to water and fall to the ground in a pool of liquid. Mizu Bunshin, he thought as he quickly searched for the missing nin. However, Zabuza got the upper hand and appeared behind the leaf Junin, his sword swung at Kakashi's waist and ripped him apart, only for the gray-haired man to turn into water as well. Zabuza's eyes opened in astonishment. He copied my technique in this fog. The Sharingan truly is a weapon to be feared. As he finished thinking, Zabuza felt the unmistakable edge of a kunai pressed against his neck. It's over, Kakashi said, coldly. Are you sure about that? Suddenly, Zabuza dissolved into water once more, the product of a Mizu Bunshin. This time it was Kakashi's eyes that widened. He suddenly found himself flying towards the river a few meters away from the group. He didn't notice the impact of Zabuza's leg, but it was strong enough to send him into the water. Zabuza rushed towards the river, before stopping suddenly. Makebishi. Good try, but not good enough, Kakashi. He quickly back-flipped onto the river's surface once more. Kakashi's head broke the surface of the lake, trying to find his adversary, only to realize that it was far too late. Zabuza stood at his side, forming hand seals very quickly. Suoro no Jutsu. Water type. Water prison technique. He spoke the jutsu with practiced ease, and the surrounding water quickly engulfed Kakashi into a swirling sphere of water. Zabuza's right arm was sticking into the sphere, holding it together and increasing the density of the water to trap the illustrious copy ninja. Run. He can't follow you while he keeps this jutsu up. Kakashi pleaded with his team. Naruto let out a short laugh. Nope. Not gonna happen, sensei. Those that would abandon their comrades are worse than trash, right? He gave his brother a quick look and the two rushed the mist Chunin, only to stop at the water's edge when Zabuza created a Mizu Bunshin without using hand seals. The two boys attacked the clone, but were thrown back by the flat of the giant sword their attacker wielded. Searching the surrounding area for anything that could be used to fight off the clone, something on the ground caught Sasuke's eye. Hey, Naruto, he gestured towards the ground off to the side of the clone that was steadily making its way towards the boys. Naruto looked towards his teammate was indicating and got the meaning of the unspoken sentence. Well, shit, I didn't want to do it, but you got a point. The blondish boy spoke, before raising his arm and pointing it to the left of the clone, his eyes closed in concentration. Meanwhile, Sasuke was throwing shuriken and kunai at the clone, only for them to be blocked by the giant sword. Thinking quickly, he created a Mizu Bunshin from the river and used it to catch the clone in a pincer move, but the Junin's clone was much too strong and destroyed the clone before once more kicking the Uchiha away. Those students of yours are weak. Zabuza commented, offhandedly to Kakashi. The Konoha Junin didn't respond, but watched his students fight against a superior opponent. He watched as Sasuke was once more repelled and fell to the ground. But as he rose, both of the Junin noticed that his face wasn't contorted in pain or frustration, but plastered with a smirk of superiority. Naruto, now, Sasuke yelled. Naruto simply smirked, eerily reminiscent of his brother, and waved his arm. In a fraction of a second, the Mizu Bunshin disintegrated and Zabuza was hit with an unseen force, and the shock of the attack forced him to release the water prison. What was that? Sakura wondered in awe. Zabuza's right arm began to drip blood as he brought it to his face to inspect the damage. He found the small makibishi lodged in his arm and stomach. The spiked pieces of metal, normally used to impede enemies' movements, had become a rather effective ranged weapon. How the hell did that brat do that? He cursed mentally, drawing his sword and advancing towards the duo, until he was stopped by Kakashi's figure rising from the river in front of him. Your fight is with me, he calmly stated, locking eyes with Zabuza. Damn it, this guy is pissing me off. Zabuza commented to himself as he began the hand seals for the Suiden Suiryuden no Jutsu, water type, water dragon technique. As he flashed through the seals, he noticed something peculiar in the behavior of his opponent. He was doing the exact same seals, at the exact same time. Suiden Suiryuden. Both Junins cried out at the same time. Two dragons composed of water rose from the raging river and spiraled at their intended target, only to crash into each other. Damn it, it's like he knows, Zabuza started. What I'm going to do next. Kakashi finished. Zabuza's eyes widened in shock as the copy nin read his thoughts. Damn you, Zabuza cursed. Insignificant monkey. Kakashi once more supplied the demon of the mist with the end of his sentence. This time Zabuza didn't respond and just ran through the seals for Suiden Daibikufu no Jutsu. Water type. Great waterfall technique. Kakashi once more imitated his opponent, and when Zabuza locked eyes with his opponent once more, he was startled to find not only Kakashi, but the ghostly figure of himself, standing behind him. Zabuza slowed his seals just a fraction of a second, but it was enough for Kakashi to finish. The water on which the two were standing began to churn around the two and rise up, creating a tidal wave that crashed against the rooted body of Momochi Zabuza. Zabuza felt his body slam into the trunk of a tree, before he was pinned to the trunk with kunai. How is it that you can see the future? He asked groggily. Your future is death. Kakashi began to move forward, kunai in hand, but was stopped as two metallic needles slammed into the incapacitated Junin's neck, killing him instantly. Everyone in the small clearing created by the battle followed the path of the needles to a masked figure standing on the tree. Thanks, I've been looking to kill Zabuza for quite some time. You were right, his future was death. The person spoke in a voice that sounded like he was the age of the genin, maybe a year or two older, but there was no appreciable difference. Ah, a mist hunter nin. Kakashi said and lowered his headband, covering the Sharingan once more. The hunter nin disappeared in a swirl of leaves, before reappearing next to the body of Zabuza. After a quick series of hand seals, the two disappeared, leaving only Team 7 and Tazuna. Well, this sucks, Kakashi said, before crumpling to the ground and passing out. Kakashi-sensei. Sakura cried out and ran to the side of her teacher to check on him. He appeared to be fine, but he seemed tired somehow. Come on, let's take him to my house, it's just a ways to town from here. Tazuna offered, still in awe at how the team handled themselves.